My name is Dr. Nikkei Blake, and I am the Senior Associate Dean of the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences here at UT Health San Antonio. It is my pleasure to introduce to you today the awardee for the 2020 Guarino Award in the Ph.D. category. The Guarino Award is the highest student recognition given by the graduate school and is a tribute to the awardee's outstanding accomplishments in three distinct areas: biomedical research, leadership, and community engagement. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you today the 2020 Guarino Awardee in the PhD category, Dr. Jodie Gray.
Hello friends at UT Health San Antonio. I want to thank the selection committee for the 2020 Guarino Award for this great honor, as well as everyone who supported me along the way. In normal circumstances, I would be so pleased to deliver this speech to incoming students during our convocation ceremony. But even though we can't be together in person, I wanted to share some of my experiences as a doctoral trainee with our incoming class. Hopefully, to share some advice and to inspire our students to strive for excellence in research, leadership, and service. To start, I want to share the opening slide from my dissertation defense, which I presented this past April. First and foremost, like any respectable dissertation or thesis should, it has a rather long title, which is also rife with a lot of rather long technical terms as well. But what I want you to see is that I very purposefully stylized this opening slide to hint at a part of the story that I didn't even have time to tell as I presented in my defense. This part of the story didn't explicitly make it into the dissertation itself, and this part of the story certainly wasn't picked up and published by any journal in its own right. The short version of this story is that the initial plan for my entire dissertation project did not work out. We had a reasonably well-informed hypothesis that depression in human adults would have a physically observable signature within the brain, and that we would see this signature even more profoundly when we use data mining techniques to combine all of the published findings of brain atrophy and depression. And what you see here are real results from the published data. But after I learned all of the brain imaging and statistical techniques to perform a study like this, statistically, these results did not agree with each other. So I was a fourth-year PhD candidate who, at best, could say that depression is both absolutely everywhere in the brain, but statistically nowhere. I was a fourth-year PhD candidate who was still trying to write training grants that I never got awarded, and a specific weakness written about me on my response letters was that I was a senior student with no publications. And I remember partially joking with my mentor, Dr. Peter Fox, that I was going to have an episode of major depression myself if this data did not start looking better. But the truth is that there wasn't anything actually wrong with this data at all. In fact, it was a very important finding. The depression just did not have the signal that we anticipated. But the harsh truth is that it's just very hard to publish a result like this. So it was at that stage that we started adding these extra hyphens to my project title and scribbling in the margins. Well, what if we add these additional data types to what you've already collected? Or what if we start teasing out the patients who are being medicated for depression, or separating those patients with severe cases? Luckily, this approach did come to fruition in some very exciting ways. We were published in a major psychiatry journal. But whether we liked it or not, the trick was that we had to bend our approach to conform to our current culture of science and publishing. And I want to share this story with incoming trainees because null results and failed experiments are going to be a part of your research and training. And I want you to remember to keep your chin up as you come across them because these encounters are crucial for your training as a scientist, as well as science as a whole, despite how our culture of science treats them. The problem of vastly under-recognizing the importance of null findings, it's so prevalent that we actually have a name for it. The file drawer problem defines this wild underrepresentation of null findings in the literature in favor of a highly skewed representation for more sensational findings, to the point that even replication studies are difficult to publish unless they're being specifically recruited for. Very recently, members and collaborators of our team at the Research Imaging Institute or working on methods to estimate and simulate the effects of unpublished studies in the way that we mine our data. So how many unpublished studies might be floating around out there? What measurable effect might they have had on our evaluation of the literature if they had been published? Might this be a contributing factor in why I found that really surprising result early on in my study? So I say all this because I do believe that our culture of science has some growing to do in this category. And I wanted our students to know about this, not just to prepare you for the ups and downs of research, and not just to inform you of this culture that you are inheriting as incoming trainees, because you're not solely the trainees of today. You're the researchers, the principal investigators, the journal editors, and the publishers of tomorrow. And the truth is that you can make an impact on the culture that you're a part of starting today. So how can you make a firm footprint in your career here? My advice is to take the extra step, to go the extra mile, to be involved with your community, both scientific and otherwise, at every possible chance that you're offered. So these wonderful students that you see in the pictures here, that I had the great joy of working with on a number of opportunities, on everything from community engagement to public policy to mentoring young people. These people who I met as students, they're now moving up in their careers, as you will too. And as well-rounded professionals, having gained all these great experiences, these students have power to enact positive change in our culture, as you will too. And I do have to take a moment to thank my wonderful mentor, Dr. Fox, for supporting me in all these extra endeavors that I enjoyed during my time at UT. Another point for the growth of the culture of science that I do recommend is that the best science doesn't exclusively arise from endless hours alone in a lab all night. So any mentors who may be listening, remember that trainees having the ability to stretch their wings is very, very important too, which is part of what the Guarino Award also recognizes. So I'm very honored to be one of this year's awardees and to help encourage our next batch of scientists to really strive for excellence, sometimes in unexpected ways. Thank you again, and best of luck in your pursuits.